Welcome to my channel Livestock Products Technology. As you know, we are doing a series of lecture on fish processing and preservation. So in the preservation series, in the previous lecture, we have discussed in general an overview about the preservation, the basic purpose and details about some of the methods. Now today we will discuss specifically about the preservation by drying. So drying is a most common traditional age-old methods for preservation of fish. So here we will discuss some details about the different methods and merits, demerits and other aspects of preservation of fish by drying. Before we go to the details about the preservation by drying, let us understand the different common methods of preservation suitable for fish. In the previous lecture, we have discussed and tried to understand the principles behind different methods of preservation like moisture control, temperature control, the physical control, the chemical control and other miscellaneous aspects for preservation of fish. So the different methods based on those principles are like drying or dehydration, that is by removing the moisture or moisture control. The second is by salting or curing in modern term. Here the salt is applied and which makes the moisture unavailable for microbial growth. Then there is temperature control, chilling or freezing, which we will discuss separately. Both salting and chilling we will discuss in separate lectures. Then there is freezing, which is a very low temperature. By freezing the water, it will not be available for microbial growth. Then smoking, it has got both processing and preservation effect. More of chemicals coming from the wood smoke plays important role as antimicrobial or antioxidant. Then there are some chemical preservatives and there are modern methods. Here separately I will have a lecture on some of the modern methods like irradiation, high pressure technology, ozonization, oxidation reduction and all that. So now let us understand the preservation by drying. The principle of preservation by drying is to remove water from the food and thus reduce the water activity of food, and which in turn arrests the microbial activity or microbial growth. That is how the drying is able to preserve food. The water will be removed, water activity will be reduced and microbial activity will be arrested. So food will not spoil. If the drying is too rapid, it might result in layer hardening or sometimes it is called case hardening, and it causes a hard texture particularly on the surface. It affects the palatability of the food or the fish, and also it will affect the rehydration process. So quick drying may result in an undesirable condition or flavor of the product. If the drying process is slow, in that case undesirable microbes might survive and grow. So if it is fast, it is some undesirable effect. If it is slow, some microbes may grow and that is again undesirable. Now drying by high temperature have been found to trigger lipid oxidation and result in off-flavored fish products. So if the drying is done at a high temperature to make it fast, because of the high temperature it will favor the oxidation of lipid and that will cause off flavor in the fish. Now to go ahead further about the preservation by drying, the sun drying is the simplest and oldest and cheapest method of air drying process for preservation of any food. It can be done as open sun drying or solar train drying. So nowadays sun drying is further advanced by application of solar drying system. The effective open sun drying depends mainly on the environmental temperature, relative humidity and wind speed. So if the temperature is high, if the relative humidity is low and the wind speed is high, so these three things decides the drying process or rate of drying: higher temperature, lower humidity and higher wind speed. These three things helps in evaporation and faster drying. However, Products dried using this method are subjected to insects and birds infestation. This is particularly in seashore. When it is done in an open atmosphere, there is a risk of infestation with insects and birds. Now let us understand the benefits of drying. So first is the preservation. The benefit of drying is preservation. So drying significantly reduces the water activity in fish, making it less hospitable for bacteria, yeasts and molds. Secondly, extended shelf life. So dried fish can be stored for extended periods without refrigeration, offering a convenient and practical preservation method. Thirdly, reduced spoilage. Drying prevents the growth of spoilage microorganisms and minimizing the food waste. And finally, the concentrated fish, rather concentrated nutrients. Dried fish is a concentrated form of fish offering a higher protein and fat content per unit weight. Because the moisture is gone, the nutrients are in a highly dense or concentrated state. So now let us talk about fish drying. The fish drying is a preservation method that reduces water content in fish, inhibiting microbial growth and extending shelf life. So by reducing the moisture, the water activity is reduced and microbial growth is reduced. It involves removing moisture from the fish typically through evaporation, either naturally in case of sun drying or air drying, or artificially in case of dehydration, maybe by oven drying or other methods, so which we will see later. So to move ahead further about the drying of fish, the drying is the oldest method for preserving fish and is considered as the least costly method. The oldest and cheapest method, that is by sun drying. One of the more popular techniques of preserving fish is drying or dehydration method. This is the most popular, cheapest and oldest. And here the removal of moisture in fish prevents the microbial growth and act as preservation. So drying or dehydration provides the following advantages. Number one, dried food requires less storage space than other types of food. Dried food weighs much less than the equivalent amount of canned products, and food can be preserved without the addition of sugar or any other preserving agent. So these are some of the advantages of preservation by drying or dehydration. So there are different methods of drying. First we will see traditional methods of drying, in which most common old method is sun drying. Here the fish are sprayed on clean raised platforms or racks, dry in the sun, allowing air to circulate and reduce moisture. But the oldest practice is to spread the fish on the seashore over some flat surface or some mats, etc. So this is the oldest and simplest method, but it can be slow and weather dependent. So if there is no sun, it will not work. If there is rain, it cannot be used. Then the next is air drying. Here the fish are dried in a well ventilated area, allowing air to remove the moisture. And the third option is smoke drying. Here the fish are hung or placed in a smokehouse where smoke from burning wood dries the fish and adds flavor. So smoking is a old practice where wood is burnt and smoke comes, where there will be both drying and addition of flavor due to the smoke. Now you will learn about modern methods of drying. In this, first is the solar drying. Here fish are dried inside a greenhouse or solar dryer, which utilizes solar energy to heat and dry the fish in a controlled environment, speeding up the process. So there is a specific design of closed sheet where the sun effect will be very highly concentrated and temperature can be raised even 45 to 50 degree or above, and the process of drying will be faster. The second is the dehydration. Here the fish are dried using artificial heat in a controlled environment like hot air oven or further modified hot air oven, where we can reduce the humidity also, and it allows the precise control of temperature and humidity. So we can increase the temperature to 80 or 100 degrees Celsius, we can decrease the humidity, and in a controlled atmosphere we can do the drying faster. And the most modern method is the freeze drying. The fish are frozen and then water is removed by sublimation. Here converting ice directly into vapor. That is the sublimation. So this happens under a vacuum and resulting in a highly preserved product. That is a high quality product. Freeze drying, though it is very costly because of the modern technology required for it, but this is having the best quality and most easily rehydratable freeze drying. So here we will discuss about the common steps for drying of fish. The first thing is wash the fish thoroughly, that is the outer surface. Then open the belly cavity and the visceral organs. So we have to open the abdomen and remove all the visceral organs. Then rinse the fish in running water and drain the water. So we should wash the inside thoroughly and clean everything and then drain it out. Then mix 10% brine solution, that is the 1 part in 9 parts or 10 gram in 100 ml, 10% brine or salt solution. Now soak the fish in a 10% brine solution for 30 to 40 minutes. Then drain the fish and wash thoroughly again with water. Then place the salted fish in bamboo racks to dry under sun or solar dryer for 2 to 3 days. So this is the actual drying. Either it can be on the bamboo racks or on the other mats or any other materials or metal racks. And in case of solar drying, generally there will be metal trays or metal racks. Now after that, cool that and then place in clean boxes or baskets or wrap them in wax paper. After the drying is over, we have to pack them properly and store them in boxes or baskets, and finally store in a cool dry place, and it should be totally moisture impermeable, the packing, otherwise it will slowly absorb the moisture. So this is the common general step for drying of fish, whatever may be the method of drying. Now let us understand what is the difference between drying and dehydration, which I have already partially discussed before. So drying is the process in which moisture is removed by exposure to natural air current and natural sun and regulated by climatic condition. So natural sun and natural air current and humidity which slowly evaporate the moisture. Whereas dehydration is the process of removing moisture with the use of mechanical device that provides artificial heat for drying, and it can artificially reduce the humidity also. Very small and thin fish can be dried straight away in the sun if they are brought in the morning and sun is shining. So small and thin fish straight away can be put for drying in the sun. If these conditions are not fulfilled, the fish must be put for one night in brine or dry salted, and they can be dried in the next morning. If the fish is reaching late, we should apply salt, either dry salt or in the solution, and in the next day it can be put for drying. So now let us discuss little more about the sun drying. As I have told, it is the most easy, cheap, old method. It is done under the sun, and natural wind speed and humidity is the main dependence for the drying. But whenever there is raining, then there is a problem. So if it is raining, we have to wait for the sunny day, and which could be few hours to few days. In case it is late, we have to wash the salt away from the fish by soaking it in seawater for a couple of hours before drying it. So I told previously, we have to keep the fish with salt, either powder or solution, and if it is very late, we have to wash it out, and it depends on the kind of taste we are expecting and the purpose for which fish is being dried. In case of small fish, mostly sun dried is done on the mats, and when it rains, the fish must be protected so that no water goes to the fish, and preferably it should be covered or they should be transferred under the shelter. If fish are laid on mats, turn them every 2 hours so that they will dry quickly. So when we are drying it on the surface like mats, we have to turn them every 2-3 hours so that drying will be faster. In the case of large fish, hanging is better if they are merely split. So in case of large fish, there are a lot of bamboo or wooden structures from which they can be hanged and after splitting. So there will be fast drying. Further, little more details about sun drying. So we are going to see a lot of photographs at the end about the different types of drying. So in case of dry salted fish can also be dried, but they should first be cleaned in water. So initially we apply salt for immediate effect if it cannot go for drying. Then before going for drying, it can be washed in water and dried. Normally the fish will be dried after 3 days. So it may take 2 to 3 days to be dried. If a large quantity of fish has been dried and it is to be kept for some time or longer time, the best way is to pile it up in a dark place off the ground and preferably on wooden boards. So when we have more amount of fish dried and which should be kept for longer time, it should be kept in dark above the ground, preferably in wooden boards. It should be then be covered with sack or mat. So after drying, it should be covered appropriately. After a fortnight, the fish should again be laid in the sun for 1 or 2 hours for another final drying. Now let us see the advantages and disadvantages of sun drying. The advantages is due to very low water content, spoilage due to microbes and enzymes are avoided. It is simple and inexpensive method, so cost of drying is very less and it can be stored at ambient temperature. So these are the advantages of sun drying, and the disadvantage is no control over drying conditions. So we cannot control the moisture level, temperature, the humidity or the wind speed. These three things decides the efficiency of drying, and dependency on natural weather. Whenever there is cold or rain, we cannot do it efficiently. And thirdly, the greater chances of contamination with dirt, dust and infestation with insects, because it is done openly, so chances of dirt or dust or insects infestation is always there. So in the picture we can see in the seashore how the metal structure with some tracks are applied and over which the drying can be done more efficiently. So here briefly we will talk about dehydration. So dehydration means it is by artificial method. So drying is carried out by controlled conditions like controlling the temperature and humidity, even the pressure also. So dehydrated fish have high quality and longer shelf life than sun-dried fish. There are various dryers like cabinet dryer, tunnel dryer, even vacuum dryer. So cabinet dryer means it's a large industrial size oven where there will be large number of trays. All the trays can be fitted into a trolley and the whole trolley can be inserted inside the dryer. So here the temperature and humidity we can decide and drying will be very efficient. There are some larger size tunnel dryer where the drying happens through the tunnel. The feeding is done in one side, it goes through the tunnel, and the outlet there will be final dried products will come out. Similarly, there can be vacuum dryer or vacuum oven where the pressure also can be reduced and temperature can be adjusted and vacuum is created, humidity can be reduced, so the drying will be faster and the quality of the dried fish will be much better. So when the drying is done under vacuum, the evaporation happens at a low temperature. In that case, the denaturation of protein is less and such dried product will have better rehydration ability, so the quality will be much better. Here we will see the factors affecting the drying, that is how the quality of dried fish depends on. First thing is the fish species. Different fish species have varying drying times and texture. So it depends on the composition or particularly the fat content in the fish. Secondly, the drying method, the choice of drying method, that is sun, air, solar and dehydration. As we have discussed, sun drying will be slow, and the season or temperature and humidity also has a role. Whereas in case of solar and other oven, it is quite faster. So all this thing affects the drying time and product quality. Then temperature and humidity. So maintaining optimal temperature and humidity during drying is crucial for efficient and safe drying. So in case of oven drying or solar drying, the temperature is higher and it is faster. Then the cleanliness, ensuring clean drying surfaces and equipment is essential to prevent contamination. So the surface which we use and the containers which we use can be an important source of contamination. So cleanliness is important for product quality. And the last one is storage. Proper storage conditions like cool, dry and airtight containers are necessary to maintain dried fish quality, because it has already lost the moisture. So if it is accessible to moisture, again it will get rehydrated and the quality will be reduced. So cool, dry, airtight containers are very important. Here in this diagram we can see different type of fish used and ingredients and different methods for drying. The large fishes are more ideal for drying, like Norwegian cod, Loita Bombay duck, the skipjack tuna and the churi ribbon fish. The ingredients like salt and spices are used here as preservative, and different methods like sun drying, smoke drying or salt drying is used. And the final products like stockfish, cliff fish, that is the cut portions are dried, and the arabusi, like the fillets or slice, are drying, and another one is the cackle and fufu. So this is a large fish opened and dried. Now we will see the pictorial uh, description for different methods of drying of different kind of fish. So how to dry fish? Here we can see it is kept on the grill. Even we can do the marination nicely with different kind of spices and condiments and dry over the oven. Here we can see the old practice, the traditional methods of drying in the seashore. The top right we can see over the sand beach, some mat is kept, most probably with the coconut husk thread. Over the fish is kept for drying in large scale. In the bottom left corner we can see the raised structure with some metal frames, and over that some shades are created, and over that the drying is done. In the bottom right we can see the big fishes, how they are dried on the separate setup, mostly kept in a standing condition. Here we can see the different dried fish, how it is marketed in the traditional way. The most of them are dried in a traditional methods and goes for traditional market. Different kind of fish we can see after drying and kept for sale. Here we can see the solar dryer, which is a more modern method. Here the shades are prepared with special materials and which will enhance the heating effect and sun rays effect, and the temperature can be increased even above 50-55 degrees Celsius, and the drying will be more efficient. Here we can see the industrial dryer for commercial large scale drying, the drying machineries. There are some famous company like Kinkai, which makes the large size drying system where the drying happens, the evaporation of moisture happens very fast by controlling the temperature and humidity. In the right side also we can see another kind of dryer. Here we can see the display of different methods of drying. in the top right corner, then at the middle and at the bottom, different methods of drying of more modern type, and the left side we can see top the different kind of dried products which are done in a more hygienic and scientific manner. In the bottom left we can see the sun drying in a elevated structure. Here we can see the packaging of different dried products. These are all highly scientific and hygienically dried products of very high quality fish being sold in different brand, and they are of very high quality with a standard modern marketing system with proper packaging. So now we are at the end of today's lecture. So we are in the series of preservation of fish. In the first lecture, I have discussed overall different methods and basic aspects of preservation. Today we are specifically discussing about the preservation by drying. So we have discussed what is drying, what is the principle, what are the different methods, the traditional methods and the modern methods, the different kind of materials or raw materials like Norwegian cod, Bombay duck, the ingredients or preservatives, salts and spices, the traditional method like sun drying, salt drying or smoke drying, advanced or modern method like the modified solar dryer or the oven dryer or pressure control, humidity control system, and then we can realize the benefits of all these seafoods or fish. They are very common and very age old practice of very high health. They can give us better health protection like osteoporosis, against cancer and cardiovascular disease. The quality aspect can be monitored like moisture, pH, lipid deterioration like TBARS, and sensory aspect like color, flavor and texture is very important. And there are microbial characteristics like presence of pathogens like Escherichia coli or other micrococcus. Some of the other pathogens can be measured. There are always safety challenges. So altogether I have tried to present briefly about the preservation of fish by drying. Thank you.